This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
The views expressed on the following show might get you all bent out of shape. We have to say this anyway. The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL. However, you're encouraged to like and share them on Facebook. It's time for the African American Scene, presented by Howard Insurance of Port St. Lucie and hosted by Rudy Howard.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Always glad to be with you here on a Wednesday night. You know, I've been trying to think of another opening line, but that's the one that works.
Yeah.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. That's my opening line.
Well, you're giving everybody triple best wishes as you enter the program.
Well, plenty of stuff going on for sure. And no guest tonight, so we're going to have open mic night. So if you've been itching for a fight with me, you get a chance to do that tonight. I have to first say, though, our president is unbelievable. Cokie Roberts died yesterday. One of the really classy reporters, ABC, she was 75, and she died battling breast cancer. And he made derogatory comments about her. I can't believe this guy. He's unbelievable. Why he would do that is beyond me. I don't know. And I think a couple of Republicans said something about it, but he needed to have his ears pinned back for that. There's just absolutely no reason to do that at all. Be that as it may, let me first advise you that the city of Fort Pierce will host the second annual Lincoln Park Business Expo on Friday, September 20th, from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the Percy S. Peak Gymnasium and Indian River State College's Blackburn Education Center, located at 2902 Avenue D. The expo is free and open to local small businesses and entrepreneurs. The workshop topics will be City of Fort Pierce tips, how to promote your business on a budget, entrepreneurial mindset, access to capital for small business, expanding your brand to make more money. And if you're interested, you can call 336-6257. That's 336-6257. Okay, that sounds like if you're in business, that might be a good thing for you to go out there and get some information to help you become a better business person. Well, last week we had the Democratic debates, which came on Thursday, so it was the day after I was on. So if you have thoughts about that debate, I'll be more than happy to entertain them. And tell me what you thought about the people that were debating. And if anybody impressed you or anybody make you mad, then you can tell me that too. And that number is 340-1590. That's 340-1590. Well, I will tell you this. In the past, I think oftentimes conservatives try to frame the candidate for Democrats by making them fear candidates. And I don't think that's going to work this time. They'll say, oh, you can't talk about that person is too liberal, or this person is too progressive. And we should ignore that, because if they support a candidate such as that judge down in Alabama, no matter how dubious the reputation, they stick to them like glue. And we have to learn how to do the same thing. We have to learn to stick by the candidates that we think best serve our interests as a Democratic Party. Again, if you have thoughts about the debate, I'd be more than happy to entertain those. And again, that number is 340-1590. And Winnie, how are you?
All right, how y'all doing tonight?
Good, good.
I was looking at quite a bit of it, and I can't. I mean, what that man? I don't know him very well. He was like he's Hispanic or something. He was saying that he want to get 10 people $1,000. Can you give me more info on that? What is that about? Why you say that?
Well, that's Yang, and he's I think
10 people $1,000.
Yeah, he's an Asian, and he's a candidate for president. He believes that if you put more money in people's pockets, it would further stimulate the economy. There is an argument for that. Now, unfortunately, most people don't like it, and I even have some trepidations about giving people money without work. But he feels that if you were to give people that money, that it would be spent, and I believe that to be true from my understanding of economics. So that would further fuel economic growth within the economy. And I think that's true, and I think that's true too. But that's what that's about.
I heard Kamala Harris, and Bernie Sanders. We talk about slavery reparation last year, period $500 a week. They'll say anything. So people can vote for them, and lots of that stuff may not don't happen.
Yeah, well,
slavery reparation been around for years and years and years, and that never had happened. Never had happened.
Well, do you think there should be reparations?
It ain't happened all these years, and I don't believe me not gonna never happen. I guess people have to work, so we have to work. That's the only way. You have to work. You have to work. There ain't nothing free in this world.
Well, no,
you just have to work.
But they gave Indians land, and giving them the land that they have since turned in many areas into casinos, which offered them a lot of money. And when we unfortunately took the nasty action of locking up the Japanese people, they paid them restitution after they finally freed them. But they haven't done anything for us. We were promised 40 acres and a mule, and that's never happened. So
never happened.
No. It ain't
gonna never happen.
Well, I'm going to tell you.
What I'm going
to tell you. I think we are way overdue for reparations, but I do. I think so. But I would also say that I think it would really cause such hostility between people that I don't know that I would support it, even though I think that black people would be entitled to it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I would support it because of the potential damage it would cause to the social fabric of our country. So,
okay. All right. Thank you for your input.
You're welcome.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So that's how I feel about it. Now somebody else may feel differently. I know some of my friends would strongly disagree with that position, but that's my position. My position is I absolutely think that we're entitled, but the contention and the stress that it would create is just not palpable.
Not to mention the drama.
Yeah.
Comes along with the stress.
Yeah. People would get so pissed off about that. We're already in a very bad way right now as far as being divided, and I think that would only serve to divide us even more because there will be some people who say, I didn't do anything, I had nothing to do with it, so why should I? And then I would say to you, that's a bogus argument because you have benefited from some of the things that were put upon us indirectly, maybe indirectly, but you benefited. That's for sure. So that would create a huge drama and a great debate, and everybody would, at the end of the day, would be unhappy because on that issue, people tend not to give ground. They think they're right, and there's nothing you're going to say that could change their mind, and other people think they're right, and there's nothing you could say is going to change their mind. So
I don't know. Maybe I don't think there's anything that can't be cured by everybody getting together for some good soul food.
Yeah, that works.
You got to try it because, folks, we're all getting desperate around here. It's really bad when family members are against family members because of political views, and people hating the people because they don't like the political views, and it goes both ways, unfortunately.
Hey, I got to tell you, I was in a meeting last night, and one lady said she loves her brother to death, but her brother is a Trump MAGA guy, and her brother have almost come to blows, and they've just had to agree to not discuss it anymore.
Wow.
Just
can't even hold a discussion about this country's leaders.
Yeah, and you know, here's the thing, and I say this to people all the time. You got Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Antonin Scalia were the very best of friends. When I found that out, I was just absolutely blown away by that because they are both at opposite ends of the spectrum.
They're professionals, though, aren't they?
Yes.
That's the secret. That you got to remain professional out there, folks. And
I think the other thing too, Cliff, which I've said this over and over and over again, I don't know that people get it. I am sure their discussions are based on fact, not conjecture,
right,
not conspiracy theories, because of the strong minds they both have. When they have a discussion, it's based on facts. And if you're having a discussion based on facts, there's a base developed, and so there's somewhere to go. You can still come up with two different points of view, but if you have a base. Now, if somebody says, if you got Alex Jones saying that Newtown was a hoax and that the kids really didn't get shot there, that's just stupid. And anybody that went along with that, I don't care if you're listening to me right now, you are a moron if you listen to Alex Jones and he convinced you that Newtown was a hoax. You're an absolute moron. And you can take it from me, and I don't care if your feelings are hurt, because that's moronic. Those kids died.
Look at that school principal who made the comments about the Holocaust never have taken place, and he lost his job.
Yeah.
You know, it's a historical situation. It's not that somebody made this stuff up to tell everybody. These other people are coming along trying to erase the history books.
Yeah.
And you really shouldn't do that.
Rewriting history. No, you can't do that. You know, but see, that's the kind of stuff. Now, for me, I can tell you, you lose me if somebody tells me that Newtown was a hoax. I'm already lost because I think you're an idiot, and I really don't want to have a discussion with you because the only thing you're going to do is piss me off because that's just completely ignorant. It's just like, and I'm going to say this too because there's a lot of people that believe this. For all of you that believed that President Obama was not from the United States, you're a moron too. Because how would you think that in the United States of America, they would let a president become president who was not from America? That's number one. Number two, do you think for 1 minute if Hillary and Bill had any inclination that he was not from America, that they would not have gone guns blazing to make that a point? So if you were out there believing that and wanting to see his birth certificate, then you're a moron also. But here, not only are you a moron, but you're a hypocrite, because if you aren't asking for Trump's taxes, you wanted Obama's birth certificate, but you don't ask for Trump taxes, huh?
Good point. Good point, Rudy.
Yeah,
340-1590. If you're in absolute agreement with Rudy tonight, give us a call.
Yeah, so listen. So I called your name. So you can call up and defend yourself.
Yeah.
Feel free. All right. Here is an article I got on how biased your media. Now, the way they have this broken down is very interesting. It's a chart, and it has liberal on one side, conservative on the other. And the first section at the bottom of the chart is entitled Propaganda Contains Misleading Info, Contains Inaccurate and Fabricated Information. Okay? And they have the liberals press that does that, and the conservative press that does that. Okay? And now some of this I can't quite see.
In this corner, CNN. In this corner, Fox News.
Yeah. On the liberal side, we have Patriobotics, David Winkle, and Occupy Democrats. And this other one I can't see. But that's on the liberal side. On the conservative side, we have the Inquirer, Natural News, World Truth TV. How about that, World Truth TV?
The National Enquirer?
Yeah, the Inquirer, yeah. The InfoWars, which we just talked about, Alex Jones, Red State, Blaze, Daily Caller, Fox News, Daily Wire. Those are all the conservative ones that give propaganda and misleading information. Now, the second section is selective or incomplete stories, unfair persuasion. On the liberal side, you have the Daily Kos, the Alternate, the New Republic, BuzzFeed, and the Huffington Post. And that's this is selective, incomplete stories or unfair persuasion. Then on the conservative side, you have the New York Post, the Drudge Report, the OWN, and the Federalist. Those are all on the conservative side of selective, incomplete stories or unfair persuasion. Then you have, in the next box, fair persuasion. And on the liberal side, you have Mother Jones and MSNBC. Now, I know people that the conservatives are like, fair persuasion, MSNBC, are you kidding me? Yeah. And then in the middle, you have CNN. That will make everybody, they'll go, oh, you're crazy. And then on the conservative side, the Examiner, the Washington Times, and I can't read this one. There's another one there, Fair Opinion. Then here are the ones that they say are analysis. So that means they tend to give you a fair analysis of the issue. Slate, Daily Beast, MIC, and Vox, and Vanity Fair on the liberal side. On the conservative side, Reason.com is analysis. Then you have on the complex analysis, you have the New Yorker, and you have Jacobin, which I'm not familiar with that at all. And then you have in the middle the Guardian, the Economist. Those are in the middle. The Guardian and the Economist are kind of in the middle. Then on the conservative side, you have the Standard and the National Review. I would agree with that. I don't always agree with the National Review, but I think that they do a fair job of giving an analysis of a situation. And then on fact reporting, and this will make some of you crazy too, Washington Post, Politico, Axios, and these are all very close to the middle too, BBC, NPR, Time is in there too. These are all close to the middle, very close to the middle. Christian Science Monitor, Time Magazine, USA Today, ABC News, CBS News, and NBC News, Bloomberg and Reuters, and The Hill and the Wall Street Journal. Those are the ones that they say give a fact reporting for you to decide. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So if you have an opinion about what I just gave you, that number is 340-1590. That's 340-1590. Now, I thought this was interesting. Of course, you know, some of this I just wasn't shocked about at all, especially InfoWars and Fox News. Not shocked about that, not one bit. So, and I guess I don't really read some of these things that they say are on the far left. I just don't read those publications. I may have read some internet articles from them, but as far as a regular dose, I don't. Now, I do look at Daily Kos on a somewhat regular basis, and I have seen the Drudge Report, and I know you've looked at the Drudge Report too. So there you have it. So I know you must be fit to be tied about that. Having your favorite news source being identified as being unfair or biased. So what do you think about that? Now, we have, we talk about all the time about socialism. I'm not sure if many of you even understand what that is, socialism. And you're very quick to call somebody a socialist if they don't subscribe to your conservative principles. Now, I have an article here that describes the 4 basic types of economy. And the first is traditional economic system. And this economic system tends to be in rural areas or third world, and is closely tied to land and usually through farming. In general, this type of economic system would be rare. For each member of a traditional economy has more specific pronounced roles in these societies. Then we go on to the command economic system. The command economic system is a system in a large part of an economic system that is controlled by centralized power. For example, the USSR, most decisions are made by the central government. This type of economy was the core of the communist philosophy. So the command economic system is typically associated with communism. Now, some examples of the command economic system: China, North Korea are examples of a command economic system. Now, what are the advantages of a command economic system? Here's the advantages. If executed correctly, the government can mobilize resources on a massive scale. This mobility can provide jobs for almost all of the citizens. The government can focus on the good of society rather than an individual. This focus could lead to a more efficient use of resources. That's from the command economic system. The disadvantages of the command economic system: it is hard for central planners to provide for everyone's needs. This challenge forces the government to ration because it cannot calculate demand since it sets the prices. There is a lack of innovation since there is no need to take any risk. Workers are also forced to pursue jobs the government deems fit. So those are the advantages and disadvantages. Now, here's the market economic system, which for the most part, my conservative friends like to consider us a market economic system. Now, there is no government intervention in a pure market economy. However, there is no truly free market economy that exists in the world. I want you to hear that again now. There is no truly free market system that exists in the world. Market system is a theory for the most part, and it is in its purest form. I probably would subscribe to it in its purest form, but we don't have a pure market economic system. Let's talk about the advantages of a market economic system. Consumers pay higher prices, pay the highest price they want to, and businesses only produce profitable goods and services. There is a lot of incentive for entrepreneurship. This competition for resources leads to most efficient use of the factors of production since businesses are very competitive. Businesses invest heavily in research and development. There is an incentive for constant innovation as companies compete to provide better products for consumers. Disadvantages: due to the fiercely competitive nature of a free market, businesses will not care for the disadvantages like the elderly or the disabled. The lack of focus on societal benefit leads to higher income inequality. Did you hear that? It leads to higher income inequality. And I have been saying that for I don't know how long. Since the market is driven solely by self-interest, economic needs have a priority over social and human needs, like providing health care for the poor. Consumers can also be exploited by monopolies. Okay, so that's the advantages and the disadvantages of a market economic system. You want to comment again, that phone number is 340-1590. And the fourth and final economic system is a mixed economic system. A mixed economic system is a combination of the different types of economic systems. This economic system is a cross between market economy and command economy. In the most common types of mixed economies, the market is more or less free of governmental ownership, except for a few key areas like transportation, sensitive industries like defense and railroads. Now, two examples that they give of the mixed economic system are India and France. They are both identified as mixed economic systems. I would have to say that we are too a mixed economic system. Advantages of a mixed economic system. There is less government intervention and then a command economy. This results in private business that can run more efficiently and cut costs down than a government entity might be able to. The government can intervene to correct market failures. For example, most governments will come in and break up a large company if they abuse monopoly power. Another example could be the taxation of harmful products like cigarettes to reduce negative effects on society. Government can create safety net programs like health care and Social Security. And in a mixed economics system, governments can use taxation policies to redistribute income and reduce inequality. Those are the advantages of a mixed economic system. The disadvantage, there are criticisms from both sides arguing that sometimes there's too much government intervention and sometimes there isn't enough. A common problem is that the state-run industries are often subsidized by the government and run into large debts because they are uncompetitive. Now, those are the four systems. Now, I hear you talk all the time about socialism, and
we hear a lot of that talk about socialism.
Oh yeah, a lot.
So-and-so's a socialist.
Yes.
And that kind of talk.
Yes, which is hogwash.
You got a really good argument against that too, because over the past couple of weeks you've been mentioning.
Yeah. Well, I think what we have seen, especially as it relates to firearms, the NRA has such a lock on the contributions for conservatives that they're frozen in terms of doing what is the will of the people as a whole. And Steve on line one, yes sir. Yes sir.
Hey Steve.
Yes, Steve.
Steve, we got you turned up. I hear you breathing.
Steve, are you there?
Wow.
Steve?
Well, he was there.
Okay, he's gone.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll call back.
Okay.
Okay, so we took a look at those four basic types of economic systems. and excuse me, that gives us a better understanding of some of the things that people say when they say socialist. Now, I wish I had saved it, but there was a statement from Paul Krugman, who was committed suicide back earlier in the year. He was a Nobel economist, and he said that there is no socialist. There is a belief in democratic societal economic behavior. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not socialism. So when you do that and you make that statement, that's an incorrect categorization of somebody, and it's really meant to call them a curse word. And unfortunately, too many times, rather than stand and fight, people run away from that. And I don't. I stand and fight when you call me that, because I'm a businessman and I'm not a socialist, but there's flaws in our economic system that need to be fixed. Which leads me to my next story, which I think you'll find very interesting. They have this thing called the Business Roundtable, and it's made up of the top CEOs in the country. And they meet once a year, once every other year, and they talk about the main issues in business today. And in the most recent meeting that they had, and I swear they must have been listening to the African American scene, because what came out of that sounds an awful lot like some of the things that I've been saying to you.
Sounded quite familiar, didn't it?
Yeah, it sounded very familiar.
I wonder if other folks recognize that information.
And what they basically said was that since the 80s, the CEOs have accepted a shareholder-driven economy. And they now see that this is a problem. And so what that means is basically they have been willing to do whatever is necessary to make money without any consideration for any of the other people that are in the stream of commerce. Now, they have said, and when I say big, here are some of the people that signed on to this. Jeff Bezos of Amazon, Tim Cook of Apple, Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan, and David Solomon of Goldman Sachs. Now, I don't want you, I know how you guys are. I don't want you to think Rudy made this up. This is a article that appeared on August 21st. And if you put in CEOs and value, it should pop up for you. Because that's what I did, because I saw a little snippet of it somewhere on Facebook, and I wanted to look it up and share it with you. So now, how about that? They have decided that what they have been doing is not right. And now we've already talked about the economic systems, and one of the problems with the market system has already raised its ugly head: income inequality. That is a absolute big, gigantic problem. I read somewhere today, and I forgot to copy it, that since 1998, I believe it was, there has been an overall increase in wages of 12%. And at the same time, CEO wages have increased by 980%. That's sick. That's sick. I don't know how you justify that. And here's another great example here. GM is in the middle of a strike, and they just agreed to pay the CEO $22 million a year. Now, they're saying they don't have enough money to meet the demands of the workers, and the workers took a cut when GM was trying to survive during the crash, and they want to get some of their money back. And can you blame them for that? And what I want to tell you, I want you to start thinking about is how much money. Think about what that guy did in Virginia. What an awesome man. He makes $4 million a year, and because he won the national championship for the University of Virginia, they wanted to give him a raise, and he said, no, give it to my staff. How many people would do that? How many people would do that? Now, for those of you that don't get it, what he just did, those people on his staff would run through a brick wall for him now. I'll tell you that.
You want to talk about loyalty?
Man, they would run through a brick wall for that guy right now after what he just did. He gave up his money to put it in the pocket of his employees. What a novel thought, making sure that your employees are properly taken care of, huh?
Wow.
Well, I'll tell you, that's something. So now the question becomes, was this window dressing or not? I happen to think business leaders are very astute at feeling the temperature of what's going on in the environment. My bet is they feel the winds of change coming. And like all good businesses, they try to get out ahead of it. Rather than have it thrust on them, they try to go out and make a way to make the changes that are least painful for them under their terms. Smart. Now the question is, do you think they will continue on with this process? Do you think they will do it? And my answer to that is yes, I think they will be. Unless, and I'm going to make this unless, if Trump is reelected, I think this could possibly go by the wayside. But I think they feel that possibility is probably minimal, so they're trying to get out ahead of what could be a change. And that's smart. That's very, very, very smart on their part, because that allows them to be at the seat to help steer the car toward a end result that they would find more acceptable. So, but think about that for a second. Boy, that is a huge, huge, huge change, that they're going to go from a shareholder-driven market to a all stakeholders process. Now, what does that mean exactly? That means that they are looking at workers, suppliers, and communities as part of their overall economic scheme. How about that? So stay tuned. Let's see if that happens. I have a feeling, like I said, if President Trump gets reelected, then it may not happen. But if he doesn't, I think they have positioned themselves perfectly as good, smart businessmen, and what is a great business strategy. They have put themselves in a position to implement some changes before the changes come and get wrapped around their neck with a noose and saying, no, you're going to do this from now on. So just keep your eyes open. I had a feeling that was coming, just like I got to tell you, about another change that I know is coming. There's going to be a change in the justice system, which is something we've talked about here so many times, and I'm going to tell you why there's going to be a change. As people begin to realize how much money we are spending, Cliff, you agree with me?
I know you're fixing to get a phone call now. I know what you're going to say.
Well,
you're going to talk about the college. It's actually cheaper to put a person through college than it is to incarcerate them.
Absolutely. Well, you know, I've said that how many times here?
And it makes the phone rings, but it's true.
It is true. It is true. You can send a kid to a 4-year college for cheaper than you can incarcerate them.
You can disagree with truth all you want, but it's still truth.
Now think about that for a second, though. Just give that some thought. We think we're punishing them, and it's costing us $60,000 to $80,000 a year to lock somebody up. You could send a kid to a 4-year Florida State for somewhere between $18,000 to $22,000.
Talk about crime prevention.
Yeah. Now, come on. Now, think about that for a moment. Send a kid to Florida State for, let's even say $25,000. Let's go high and say it's $25,000 a year versus $60,000 a year. Mm-hmm. Who wins on that? Do we win? I think we win.
Yeah.
We make a tax-paying citizen. Mm-hmm. We cut $40,000 a year of expense, and we make a productive citizen. I don't know. I don't see any downside to that. But I think what's happening and why you're going to see change is the conservatives are beginning to realize how wasteful the cost of locking people up. They had on, I don't know if you saw it, I might have talked about it, no, I don't think I talked about it last week, but they had, Lester Holt did a show. And this guy who was a service veteran, was guilty of selling drugs, did a bad thing, didn't hurt anybody, didn't cause any injuries, he sold drugs. They gave him 150 years in jail. 150 years in jail. He was a veteran.
How old was he?
Drugs. He was like 24. They gave him 150 years in jail.
So he has to live to be 175 before he can see freedom again. Not likely.
Fortunately, they had a program that advocated for him, and he got out after 20 years in jail. And we got Ray on line 1. Yes, sir.
Hey, how are you doing, Rudy?
Okay.
Well, my question for you is, where is the cutoff? If a youthful offender commits a crime, it's cheaper to send him to college than to jail. Where is the cutoff? I mean, is it just somebody convicted of shoplifting, somebody steals a car? Where there's got to be a cutoff point somewhere.
Well, I
have a feeling there's going to be a lot of people at Florida State. They're going to be very unhappy if you send some 18-year-old kid there that just killed somebody.
We're not talking about as a punishment. School as a punishment.
Yeah.
We're talking about it as a prevention.
Yeah, but first of all, do you think?
Well, that wasn't the way it sounded.
But wait though, but let's talk about that too for a second. Why would I want to send a convicted murderer to Florida State? That doesn't make a lot of sense. I would hope you
Rudy,
think that
I must have come in. I must have come in late on the conversation because it sounded an awful lot like you were saying, instead of sending some of these young people to jail, send them to college.
No reading in between the lines.
I apparently misunderstood the intent.
Okay. But do you agree? The point that I was trying to make is that conservatives are waking up to the fact that it is astronomically expensive to jail people, and there's other alternatives that can make a difference in society in the person's life and a positive impact on our pocketbook. Do you disagree with that?
I obviously would have to see the numbers and the information behind that. I would be interested where I could find something like that to do some reading on it. But I don't like to disagree or agree with something without a little bit of research.
That's easy. All you got to do is do a Google search and find out what the annual cost of incarceration for a person is, and then look up what the cost of tuition at Florida State is. Simple. And you'll see there's a gross disparity between what we spend to lock somebody up and what it would take to put somebody through college. Gross disparity. And while I know your conservative Bonafides is telling you there's something wrong with that, but don't go by your conservative Bonafides, just go by the math. The math says that makes sense.
Simple math.
What are your thoughts about privatizing the prison system?
I think that's terrible.
Okay.
What do you think?
All right. Well, I think that they have been running that up the flagpole for some time as a cost savings. I thought you were just trying to get it where it was a little bit more equitable between the cost of putting somebody in prison and putting somebody through college.
Well, no. See, and here's one of the problems with the private prisons. Do you know, in many cases, states have to sign agreements with the private prisons that if they don't have a certain percentage of occupancy, the state has to pay a penalty. Were you aware of that?
No, sir.
Okay, you can look that up too. That information is available. So what you have then is a built-in, unstated incentive to try to keep people in jail or put people in jail so as not to have to pay the penalty for the jails being empty.
Well, I understand, but are you saying there's a direct correlation to education versus crime? You know, if we take these kids and send them to college, I'm not entirely sure there's a direct correlation that we won't just end up with smarter criminals.
You don't think that if you put a kid?
I think it will do great for some of them. I have no doubt, but you're painting with a broad brush. Again, like I said, you have to look at both sides of that equation, and there are going to be kids that it's going to, do a lot of good for, and then there are going to be kids that, when we get done, we're just going to have a smarter criminal. And unfortunately, it's the nature of human beings.
Yeah, well, call me back next week because we're at the end of the hour, and I'll be glad to entertain that discussion because I have a lot to say about that. But anyway, thank you so much for calling, Ray. And
have a good evening.
You too. Folks, I'd like to thank you so much for tuning in to the African American scene. God bless, be safe, and think about some of the things that I told you tonight. And I'll see you right here next Wednesday for the African American scene.
The African American Scene with Rudy Howard, brought to you by Howard Insurance of Port St. Lucie every Wednesday evening in the 6 p.m. hour. Archives of this show can be seen on YouTube. Look for WPSL TV on YouTube and find archives of the African American Scene with Rudy Howard. This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.